Hello, welcome back to Fist Entertainment. This time, tonight we will be reviewing the Firefly trilogy. I have watched all three of these films already over the past 3 days. It just took me all this time to get on camera and talk about them. So, I will first go ahead and say that I am not a Rob Zombie fan. I have reviewed these movies for the sole purpose of fandom on this channel. Now let me explain why I'm not a fan of his movies, especially these. But most of his other films, like Lords of Salem, as well as 31 and Hell's Kitchen. I'll explain very simply why. All that Rob Zombie's doing is artistically showing in directed and written style filmmaking his love for Tobe Hooper's original cult classic, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, from 1974, and miserably fucking failing at capturing the essence of Tobe Hooper's movie. That is what Rob Zombie's been doing with all these films. That's why they all have to do with the demographic of white trash, hillbilly, redneck demographics and social groups. Why it's all ghetto and all just the way that it is. These films are fun, I will admit that, but they're really aimed at a certain type of person. And that type of person is usually a southern western, hillbilly type of person. Basically, that's what it's aimed at. And if it's not that, it's what they eventually become in my generation. Convicts and thugs. But that's what these films are aimed at. That's what they're trying to capture the attention of is those type of people. That's the audience that is trying to get. But let's go ahead and talk about the movie itself. All right. So, House of a Thousand Corpses from 2002. Out of the three films, House of a Thousand Corpses is probably my favorite one of the three. The reason why is because House of a Thousand Corpses to me still comes across more as a horror film slasher that actually has supernatural elements. And if Rob Zombie would have made The Devil's Rejects and Three from Hell more like House of a Thousand Corpses, it would have been a hell of a lot more out there, and it probably would appeal to me more. Because I actually like House of a Thousand Corpses a little bit because of the supernatural subtext in the movie. I mean, and I'll get to that now, talking about the synopsis of the movie, because this is a regular review. So, I have never reviewed this movie, so we get to talk about the plot. The plot is a simple plot that has to do with two roommates and their girlfriends who are trying to write a book about the crazy attractions that people come across into going into cross country, going to little hick towns over the place. And in doing so, they come across this hick town that has a attraction. This has a gas station as well as a murder ride and a museum all in one called Captain Spaulding's House of Horrors or some shit like that, as I can recall. And they go on a ride and all that stuff, and they hear about this mythology of a local serial killer known as Dr. Satan. He was a surgeon. He used to take patients and do alterations with their bodies, trying to make them into his ideal of superhumans. And that he was hung, and there's a special tree nearby that he was hung at. And so their curiosity gets the better of them, and they go looking for this tree. And they run into trouble when they pick up a hitchhiker. He was a woman, who we all know as Baby Firefly. What's her name? And they get a blowout in their tire, and they go ahead and go to her family's house, which is really a house of horrors in its own. And when they discover that things are not exactly normal, they try to get away, just to be caught in a web of horrors from this family of serial killers, basically. And they try to escape, and it doesn't work out so well for them. And of course, in the fourth act of the movie, the two remaining ones that are not dead yet get submerged down in this well to underground caverns beneath the family's house, in which they are walking by what appears to be supernatural bodies underneath the water, trying to come up and grab them. Like I said, there's supernatural elements in this movie. People don't really remember that about this film, because when it comes to this trilogy, the two films people think most about are Devil's Rejects and Three from Hell. They don't really think about House of 1,000 Corpses and the fact that that is more of a supernatural horror movie than the other two films. And of course, our final girl does evade being captured by these supernatural bodies that are underneath the water. And she tries to find a way out of these underground caverns, and in doing so, she discovers literally the decayed remains of 1,000 murder victims that are all over the place. Hence, House of 1,000 Corpses, the title of the film. Then she finally sees Dr. Satan is still alive and well, and it's almost like he is supernatural in his own right. He looks like a freaking demented creature. And when you put A and B and C and put them together, it makes a lot of sense, and we'll get to that. She does escape after taking out this other like creatureistic, deformed, decayed. We all know if it's supernatural, don't know if it's natural. Maybe it's a little bit of both. Freaking creature thing that's fucking following her, and with a pickaxe. This is a reference, of course, to My Bloody Valentine. Like I said, he references 70s films and the 80s films in this freaking movie, mostly 70s. She escapes, thinks that Dr. Smalding is going to help her, and when she goes out as a hitchhiker and gets picked up by him, just to find out he was one of the serial killers all along. Alright, now how do they make sense of Dr. Satan being alive, as well as what appears to be supernatural demonic creatures trying to pull people in water or stuff like that? How do you make sense of it? Well, the first film really goes more into this than the other two. The Firefly family are a bunch of devil worshippers that also practice black magic. And maybe they have talked to demonic spirits and have brought in people back from the dead. And maybe that's deal with the devil, or maybe they're demons themselves. No one really not quite knows, because the Firefly family really was never really talked about past the first movie. And so, like I said, it would be very interesting to see what would have happened if they would have continued this franchise trilogy by Rob Zombie and basing it more off of House of a Thousand Corpses instead of trying to make it so realistic and so natural. If you kept a little bit of fantasy holder in the fucking movies, they would have been better movies, in my opinion, and they would have been much more of a thrilling ride to me than what became of these films with the second and third films. So yes, that is why I like the first film more than I do the second and third films. Quality-wise, this has a retro 1970s look to it, so lots of warm color temperatures, and there's lots of grain in this movie. This film has never been... The grain has never been removed in this movie, but I think that's because Rob Zombie never wanted it removed, and he made it clear that he didn't want the grain in the film-like look of the stock being removed from the movie, so it's definitely there. It does not wash out or anything, it just, it has that grainy film element look to the film, and it has like a 1970s retro look, as if the film was made in the 70s. It is shot in 1.78 by 1 widescreen. It contains a 7.1 DTS HD high resolution sound presentation. DTS HD high resolution was the first DTS HD technology introduced when Blu-ray first came out, so this is one of the original golden Blu-rays of when it was brand new on the market to get a Blu-ray disc. Quality is very good on the sound. I'm very amazed by how intense the sound is in House of a Thousand Corpses. And well, that's pretty much my review of the first film in the introduction into this trilogy. House of a Thousand Corpses came out in fall 2002. I hope you guys enjoyed my review of this movie. And I will see you guys next time for my review of The Devil's Rejects. Until then.